Welcome back. You're watching Eye on India. Guests this evening, Rama Vedashree, the CEO of Data Security Council of India, Ashutosh Jain, the Chief Information Security Officer of Axis Bank, and Vidur Gupta, Partner Cybersecurity at EY. Rama, let me get wrap-up comments from you. As we await the new legislation, and we don't know when that is going to happen or whether it's going to happen in the tenure of this government at all, what is it that we need to focus on in terms of being able to create this ecosystem around privacy?
I think anyone who deals, any enterprise, corporate, it could be a small mobile solution provider to a large corporate, to a large public sector agency, should start becoming responsible about respecting the privacy of citizens. Industry plus government should collaborate to build the capabilities so that there is a self-regulatory mechanism and the best practices adoption and leverage technologies for privacy. And the tech industry has an opportunity. They've already geared up for conformance to the EU GDPR. So there is a certain level of maturity that has been built for privacy practices. I think they can scale up in terms of how do they lead, because it's the tech industry which is supporting both government institutions and the corporates in their rollouts of their digital initiatives. And how do we look at being responsible in respecting privacy of the citizens, and also look at privacy as an opportunity area where we could build technology solutions to ease the implementation of privacy across the enterprises in India when actually the legislation comes. I think we don't have to wait for the final legislation. The corporate in India, tech industry and government can collaborate to actually help realize this Supreme Court judgment of privacy being a fundamental right.
Even ahead of the legislation being finalized. But Vidur, just to take that point forward now, the kind of opportunity that this throws up, give me a sense of what you see from an innovation perspective, from a collaboration perspective. What's the sort of momentum that's already starting to build up around this?
So so Shereen, I think as we await the recommendations from the Sri Krishna committee, there is a definite momentum in terms of within the government departments itself. We clearly see, all the citizen-centric initiatives having a specific focus around data privacy, data protection, in terms of what mechanisms they are implementing, as well as kind of awareness that they are trying to spread to the citizens itself. So that we clearly see. I think from a corporate perspective also, many of the corporates have come forward in terms of either as part of their CSR initiative or their heightened awakening in terms of what they want to drive for citizens being a little more aware about their own personal information, their own personal data. So there is a positive movement, a positive sense, but I still believe that unless we have a clear regulation and an act driving us, perhaps there is some gap, there is some distance to be covered.
Now, absolutely. I would imagine that people would wait for the legislation before they actually take any significant step forward on this. But just going back to the enforcement issue again, Vidur, in terms of this agency, this body that both Rama and you spoke of, give me a sense of what the expectation is, given what we are seeing globally as well.
So perhaps the first thing which I would expect is that to have the government departments also included as part of this new legislation. The IT Act 2008 amendment had only predominantly for the body corporates. Now we would want even the government services and the government departments to come under this regulation to do that. The second, I think this independent regulator perhaps have arms and feet on ground where they're looking at implementation, trying to monitor, trying to do a regular sort of audits or periodic checks, be it for the corporates as well as for the government departments. So that's the kind of a role I envisage from this independent body, which is more in helping in on-ground enforcement.
What about creating the pipeline for privacy professionals?
Yeah, that's Shereen. In fact, that's a very good point because that's, I think, the amount of the skill gap which we currently have as a country, that's quite huge. I guess a thrust in terms of from an education perspective itself, starting with various colleges or formalizations of courses around data protection, data privacy is important. And at the same stage, in terms of the constant upskilling needs to be reinforced, be it for corporates or be it for citizens or be it for the government bodies itself. That's the field, because it's the kind of pace that it's moving.
Sure.
It definitely needs a constant upskilling.
Ashutosh, let me end then by asking you about the opportunity and how you intend to maximize it. The payment industry is expected to grow to $500 billion by 2020. That's the Google BCG report. What are you seeing now in terms of the next steps from where we are today to where we could possibly be headed?
Yeah, so overall, how I see it, that the industry was always ready. When demonetization happened, actually it was a kind of a catalyst which actually encouraged every citizen to actually take on to digital payments, whether any channels, which is either mobile banking, internet banking, or digital payments. In process, I think the entire journey has been extremely good. It has encouraged a lot of actually. It has tested the stress levels of every single institution in terms of the capacities what they have, and also the innovation is also there with respect to a lot of new fintech companies have now come onto the play. So earlier it was basically getting the new services to the company. Now it is getting secure services to the company, which I think is the main thing which actually will be differentiator going to the 500 billion as said.
Okay, well, Ashutosh, Rama and Vidur, appreciate you joining us here on Eye on India to discuss some of the concerns that India does have to deal with when it comes to data privacy and data protection. Law is the order and the need of the hour, but when we will have one in place is the big question. We don't have an answer to that just yet. But appreciate your time here on Eye on India, and thanks very much for joining us on CNBC TV 18. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this CNBC TV 18 special. From all of us here, goodbye and many thanks for watching.